Great. Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of Council of October 7th. It being 7 o'clock, I'll turn to Councillor Shepherd.
This is the land acknowledgement. The District of Sechelt is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Sechelt Nation. We respect the histories, language, and culture of the people of the Sechelt Nation, whose presence continues to enrich this community.
Great, thank you. And I'll call the meeting to order. Council, you've got the agenda. I have been asked to remind all of us, page 121, the report is correct, but the agenda indicates for first reading, but in fact, as the report says, it's for first, second, and third readings. So that, with that amendment to the agenda, if there's anything else or any concerns, I'll take a motion. Thank you. And second, all in favor of adoption? Carried. Just before we go on, I'd like to acknowledge we have a new Director of Engineering and Operations. Megan Lee joins us with a real name tag on the. So welcome and congratulations. Thank you. Nick. I know you like the camera so much. Oh, well done. Council, we can jump right into it, I guess. Item 5.1 is regarding 5750 Anchor Road, and we have a report. Please, Mr. Hall. Good.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. And we have a development permit here ready for council to make a decision on. It involves two duplexes. Previously on this property, the owner had applied for a temporary use permit to put one unit on the site, and council had previously approved that temporary use permit as a kind of a show home type unit. And their intent was to then come back at a future date with the final development plans for the site, which have evolved over time, but have culminated in this current 4-unit, 2-duplex proposal. So using that existing unit, adding on to it to create one duplex, and then the other duplex on top of that. So basically this covers off development permit area 5, the steep slopes, but then primarily for council's consideration of the development permit area 8 guidelines. APC has previously reviewed this and commented on it, and we have got the development permit ready for council to approve.
Great. Thank you. And I know we have the applicant with us just before the meeting. Mr. Palomares, if you keep it short. If you come to the table, please, and press the microphone so that we can, so those who are online need to be able to hear from the microphone. No, Greg, you got to press the, there you go.
Here it is.
And please have a seat so the microphone picks you up as well.
So I will be brief
Greg,
and I will start
Greg, you need to sit down or the microphone won't necessarily pick you up as well. Great. Thank you.
So I know the council got not much time, and I'm a little bit out of line over here because my main concern was is regarding the stairs and a roof over the stairs. And I do have an alternative proposal, but I wasn't able to submit it on time. So that's why the council doesn't have all the documentation that is necessary to really overview this proposal. Proposal is basically replace the advisory board advice to, what do you say, to basically put a roof over the stairs with the elevators, that every unit would have independent elevators. And in my submission, it would help, and it will be a better option than creating some type of a massive structure over the stairs on this property that visually, I don't think it would be pleasing, pleasing contraption. I don't even know how we're going to precisely do it yet. To this, structure over the stairs, and I would like to bring it to the attention that for some reason, when we had advisory board meeting, it was presented as this is advice. Now it's become a binding contract out of the development permit that it must be done. I take a little bit of objection to it. How would it become that we want to look into it? What are we going to do to written binding contract? This is condition of the development. So I'd like to, get your approval or decision on it, which way we can go. Can we actually eliminate this proposed or suggested roof over the stairway, that actually it's not part of the BC building code. It doesn't have to be done. It's just, of course, it would be nice to have it, snow, rain. Sure, no
Right.
problem, consideration are valid, but it's just the practicality of it. I don't
Thank
know,
you.
it-
Okay,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah, in this forum, this is not for us to negotiate. But just to clarify, I heard you say something about elevators?
Yes, I'm proposing an elevator. I have a picture of it. I have a rendering of it, how it will look. Unfortunately, I didn't submit it in time, and Ian wasn't able to properly present it to council, but I do have a picture where if we have a time, quickly look at it, and perhaps we can have a preliminary, okay, is it something we could consider, or absolutely have to build this roof over the stairs?
Okay.
It's
Because
my only- it's my
what's,
only kind of a concern.
what's before us is either to approve the EP as presented, I guess, or the options are to defer the application, which is, I think maybe, because we're not experts to say whether an elevator makes sense or any of that stuff. So I'm wondering if, I think, I'm sure council, we read the report, we'd like to discuss what's before us, but it sounds like maybe what you're saying is they could come back to us at our meeting in a month so that it gives you time to assess and discuss with Mr. Hall and the rest of staff.
I don't want to really delay this process. We had it for 2 years, and every month it's becoming kind of
Right.
critical at this stage.
Yeah.
So I don't have a proposal. No, advisory board was something we can look into it, and somehow it's got proposed now as a condition of the development permit. That's what I kind of find a little bit.
No, I understand, and
You
I,
understand my position,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
why I say, okay, there is alternative option, and I think better options. And I even clear it with a, with a, what do you call it, a DC safety authority, that we can actually build these
Mhm.
elevators.
Right.
Supported with a picture, site location specific, and I get approval to do that. So it's lots of, effort to get this thing approved.
Right.
So, I don't know what to suggest,
Okay.
if
All right.
it's-
I think we've heard you, so
Yeah.
let us have our conversation. If
Sure.
we've got questions, I'll invite you to come back
Yeah, okay.
to the,
Okay.
yeah, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, if you just turn the microphone off, that's great. Thanks so much. Counselor Inkster.
Yeah, I'm a little perplexed, because as you mentioned, this sounds like it's a negotiation, at this public meeting on a couple of items. And so that's why I'm perplexed and confused. Usually this discussion happens with staff previous to the meeting this evening. And then staff comes back with a recommendation based on recommended items based on a discussion they've had with the proponent.
Yes.
So,
Yep, that's right.
yeah, so I'm looking at the options here, and I'm not seeing staff looking at number 2, but I'm wondering about 1 with the information that appears to have come this evening with some discussions still to be had. When the proponent indicates that there's a piece that was in the document presented to us that says must, and they have issue with that, I would prefer that they have a discussion with staff.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Others, folks, Counselor Bell,
The chair,
pull the microphone down, please. Great.
through the chair. I feel, Mr. Hall, I'm just curious. 1 month is pretty significant time. Could we be a little open to looking at less than a month to look at this again as a possible discussion? Be reasonable.
I think it comes down to how quickly we can get updated plans to bring back to the next council meeting. So we're looking at, if we're trying to meet the next 2 weeks, then it's really that turnaround.
Yeah.
Otherwise, not much else would need to change in the permit other than swapping out the plans and updating
Yeah,
a few things.
absolutely. Thank you.
Other questions, council? Yes, Counselor Shepherd.
I had a question through the chair, if I could direct it to planning staff. Top of page 4, the primary focus of council review should be the DPA number 8 objectives and guidelines. Going down to the next page, DP8, bullet points to create a variety of compact housing forms, to integrate new infill development, to provide new housing forms. If I'm understanding planning's comments correctly, you're saying that this application meets those guidelines? Is that correct?
Yes.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Others, folks? In terms of the month, and I'm not seeing others, in terms of whether it's 2 weeks or a month or whatever, am I right that you're not, staff are not quite ready? As I read on page 4 that DP 4 and 5 are still under review. And the top, somewhere else I noticed reference to, oh, and then the question on page 6 indicates the DP can be issued once the security is paid. So are we waiting on, is 4 and 5, are 4 and 5 done yet? Or are you still,
Yeah, I mean, development permit area 4 and 5 are done, so the development permit before you is ready for council to approve. I guess we're distinguishing between council approval and then staff issuing the permit, subject to having the security.
understood about the security,
Yeah.
but the staff have finished their review?
Yeah, everything is ready for council
Okay.
to approve.
So that's, okay, thank you. Okay. And what I think I'm hearing, a little bit unusual, but you're not happy with the wording of the DP? Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. No, I think it's with staff that you need to reach that consensus or not. So, yes, ma'am? Stein on. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, okay, so, but you're. Okay. Right. Okay. So it's procedural here, I guess is the best that I can offer you. Council is ready, read the report, we've had a discussion, we can vote. It's obviously up to council how they wish to vote. But if you want to give us any, I guess the obvious thing, if you wanted to have us defer it, I'm sure we would be quick to agree with that. But if you'd like us to continue it the way it's being offered, presented to us, then we will have to do it. So, Mr. Palomars? Okay, I can't give you any assurance on 2 weeks, so I think you have to decide if you wish to just go back to Mr. Hall tomorrow with some of the plans you have and see what can be done. But practically 2 weeks is unrealistic. If your plans are ready, then a month is probably realistic. But I did say if your plans, and if you've got the BC safety for the elevators and stuff. So I don't want to carry on this discussion, but I think you've given us a hint of what you prefer, Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, thanks. I'm assuming we're looking at deferral based on there's some pieces that need to be worked out here. I do know that Director Allen has his hand up. Maybe he can give us some indication of how long that may take to review the documents have changed. Thank
Mr. Allen. had your
Thank you,
hand
Your
up.
Worship. I was going to suggest a compromise of sorts. If it's at the will of council and the remainder of the development permit is suitable, you could offer a notion of conditional support or conditional issuance subject to staff and the applicant working out this final detail. If we find that we're able to work out the detail, be it covered stairs or elevator, to mutual agreement, the permit could be issued. If we're unable to come to conclusion, we can come back to council at the next available opportunity. And it kind of is more than a deferral, but less than issuance of a permit that the applicant might not want at this precise moment.
Okay. Counselor Shepherd,
I'm willing to move that we proceed with a conditional approval, subject to staff working out final details
on the staircase.
on the staircase.
Is that? Yeah, okay. And that's a second? Okay. Any Counselor Inkster, something new?
I know staff, as they often are, trying to be helpful. And I think that if in fact there was some difficulties and based on the time of approval and the fact that developments don't always just, I wish they were like tents we set up in the summer where we throw them out there, but they take time and it may take longer than a month. So I think that
Which
it's,
is, that's why that's not in the agenda or in the motion.
yeah.
Time is not in the motion.
Yeah, I'm just a little confused because we're giving permission and then maybe they'll work it out. So I'm not, that doesn't work for me. It's a little bit, the mechanics of that is not something
Okay,
that doesn't work
thank you.
for me. So I can support it. I'd love just a deferral and they could come back with a plan.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hall, you had something to?
Yeah, just to add on to Director Allen's point, our procedures bylaw does give the Director of Planning delegated authority to make or to approve minor changes to an issued or an approved development permit. So if in the situation where council has approved a permit and they come back and they're proposing minor changes, if we determine that it's within scope for that delegated authority, then the director could approve those changes without having to come back to council. So that might be an avenue here. I mean, that was one of the approaches when the applicant had brought up the elevator recently. I had noted that as a potential option to say, council can approve the DP as is. You could apply for an amendment after the fact, and we could look at the elevator through that amendment to determine if that was something that was within the scope of the delegated
So-
authority.
So at the moment, we've got it before us where we would leave that sort of decision to the Director of Planning officially, to staff. That's that everybody's understanding? That, yeah, yeah. Okay, and do we have the resolution? Because I have a feeling we have to take it back. Counselor Inkster?
I'm not, this isn't a situation where I'm comfortable to put the decision and put the potential noose around our Director of Planning. I'd rather
Okay.
us make this decision. We're the elected body, so.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? A motion before us, so perhaps to be sure, Counselor Todd.
Thank you. I hear what Councilor Inkster is saying, but ultimately, if staff and the applicant aren't able to reach an agreement on it, it'll come back to us for a final decision anyways. So when I was looking through the renderings that are attached to the agenda, I was happy with it. I'm happy to move it forward in any form tonight. So I was contemplating striking G entirely, but I like the idea of trying to work something out that does provide more benefit for the folks that'll be living here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Could we have the resolution, the motion, please?
So the two resolutions, number one was to defer the application pending additional information, and two was to deny the application.
Right, but no, we have a motion on the
Amended.
floor, which is something along the lines that the DP 2022-25 be approved and issued subject to Director of Planning and the applicant coming to an agreement on the staircase. Does that work?
Yes, that will work.
Okay, there. Council's got that? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councilors McLaughlin and Inkster are opposed. The motion carries. Thank you. I'd suggest you get your documents in. Staff are really busy, so you've got things already, get them in. And, yeah, okay. Right. Okay, and then we'll keep moving. And you got an indication from council of the support for the project in general, so hopefully that's helpful. Great, thank you. Great. All right, council, and we go to agenda item 5.2. This is the DP for 5981 Shoal Way. And Mr. Baker appears on our screen.
Good evening, council. Yes, so before you is a development permit application for a development residential proposal at 5981 Shoal Way. So the DP is for form and character to permit the future construction of 28 townhouse units in 6 separate buildings on the southeast portion of the subject property. Give a little background. So council approved the OCP and rezoning amendment back in February of this year. The project meets the RM zoning regulations specific to the site. As per the zoning conditions, 2 units will be offered to a nonprofit housing operator at a subsidized rate. This housing is intended for working professionals such as nurses and teachers. Just a slight deviation. So the applicant intends to actually subdivide a portion of land where the proposed 28 townhouse units would be located. Which will be deemed proposed lot 1 from the rest of the subject property, which will be regarded as proposed lot 2. So when the subject property was being rezoned initially, where it was intended on being developed in phases, the applicant has since again submitted a subdivision application and intends to develop the remainder parcel at a later date. This change was referenced in the staff report before you. District staff and the applicant worked together to address the changes to ensure that despite there being 2 separate parcels proposed, the overall development on both lots would be reflective of the original proposal during the rezoning phase. So this would include securing the connectivity and access to pathways and amenity spaces between the 2 sites by registering a covenant. This is to ensure connectivity to amenity spaces will be maintained as was conceptually intended during the rezoning phase. And additionally, a covenant will be registered by the applicant to ensure that rainwater harvesting will be used for on-site irrigation purposes and to alleviate water usage. Overall, the project appears to meet the objectives and guidelines of development permit area number 7. This application did go to the Advisory Planning Commission on September 3rd of this year. And based on the feedback from the APC, which you can see within the staff report before you, the applicants have submitted revised plans based on that feedback from the APC, which is now attached to the council report or staff report. So staff recommend that the development permit be approved by council. And this concludes staff's introduction to the application. Staff will be here to, of course, answer any questions the best that we can. And the applicant and I believe their architect are present to answer any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. The applicant has many hats, but I don't believe he's an architect. Oh, all right. I stand corrected. Yeah. Okay, council, what's your pleasure? Like to jump in? But you got a motion? Councillor Shepherd, please.
Yeah, I'll move that the development or the recommendation on page 65 Proceed.
So that DP 2024-10 be approved and issued. Okay, is there a seconder? Okay, discussion? Other points? Councilor McLaughlin, please.
Yes, thank you through the chair. Is that coming through?
So,
Um, I do not think this is the right time to approve this project. There are numerous projects in the area underway for townhouses. We did get a letter from a fellow named Jim Kay today that outlines 12 points. And he's a resident in the neighborhood about what should be reviewed first. Again, I believe that there should be a proper neighborhood plan for this area. Also, in order to be effective planning, really, effective growth means updated with the regional partners. So we haven't really looked at the area in terms of density and long-term planning at all. And also, we're supposed to be doing it with our partners, including the Sechelt Nation, and we know that they've listed a lot of comments and concerns about developments in this area. And given that there's already so many approved, I think it would be worthwhile to put this on pause for some reconsideration, perhaps some reconciliation in terms of how we do this work. And I just want to notice in the CUF report, page 73, members of council and staff were concerned that the community is growing too fast and that council says yes to everything. That's a quote. That reports to council would benefit by a more thorough analysis. So site planning analysis, issues analysis, more consultation on this. I don't think there's a big rush to get this done. From what I've known, talking to realtors over the last 10 years, is that selling townhouses, especially ones that are in such large developments with so many units, can be a challenge if the price isn't right. And so I'm just concerned that this is a lot to put on the market at one time, all of these developments. And I know we want to have some townhouse development for people to buy as their homes, but we're not sure what the cost will be for that. We're not sure we can actually conserve those units for the workers that we need. And we're not really sure that actually they wouldn't be bought by people from out of town who really just want them as recreational properties. So I think it's worthwhile to look into it some more, not really approve this at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Inkster?
Thanks. There's this road here that we see a number of plans on is, in a sense, been waiting for a number of years for development to occur in that area. As with a number of other developments, it's contained within our urban containment boundary. The roadway has been, in a sense, upgraded, so it will meet the demands most likely of any future plans, as long as we continue to upgrade trail and the road that comes off of trail there up to the arena. It has two schools nearby, one quick walking trail to Chat and one 5 minutes away in another direction to an elementary school, as well as a golf course, fields within 10 minutes, hiking trails, and an arena. So it's a good place to put, in a sense, what would be called the missing middle affordable housing with families, based on the fact that we have two schools in the area, decent roadways, rec facilities, walking trails, and playing fields, which I know Councillor Toth sees me as loving the presence of. So I think it's good to put these in this area because that's where a number of our family-friendly facilities are. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Bell?
Yeah, through the chair, just a general comment. Certainly, Councillor McLaughlin, I hear some of your concerns. I mean, we're all in a sad situation of an inflated marketplace, and no matter how we look at this, affordability is going to be a challenge. I think what we need to really look at is we're in desperate need of workforce housing. We know that people can't live here because they can't find housing, so that's why I'm going to support this project.
Thank you. Okay, Councilor Rowe?
Yeah, I echo Counselor Bell's thoughts. I sort of live in the world of trying to hire people and them looking for places that aren't necessarily, again, the word affordable gets used to the extent that people don't necessarily understand it, but certainly these people don't need subsidized housing, but they need something that's attainable. And I think a development like this matches that. Right now, 2 nurses waiting to come from Alberta, looking for somewhere to live. So the province has put out recruitment bonuses for these type of workers to come to rural BC. And this is an example of something that we can do to help make that come to fruition. So I am in support of this project. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin, you had a follow-up?
Yes, a little follow-up, thank you. Sorry, I got a bit of a whatever, ongoing cough. I mean, I appreciate what people are saying in that regard, but also I want to have councillors and mayor think about the value of this land. The value of this land is because of the services we've brought to it. And so if we had let the same developer pretty much take up all these almost 5-acre lots kind of thing, they get the benefit of the lift of that land, totally. Whereas the possibility is that if we look at it longer term, we might be able to build social housing on this property, perhaps apartments, something different. We haven't really taken the time because we've just been responding over and over to what the development community brings to us. But I think if we think about it longer term, we could possibly have the site as social housing. And the benefit would be to the community in the land lift, not to the developer. And it could be so good for so many lower income people, which are the ones, when you have kids and that, you're lower income, you're strapped for cash and you need a place to live. And you're right, it is a great place to be located for so many reasons, especially for children. So, and young families. So I'm very cognizant of that. And that's why I think it would be worthwhile to wait and see what we can do to get a better plan for this site. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Toff.
Thank you. I mean, here's the thing is that we've already given the lift to this property when we approved its rezoning and OCP previously for the 117 units. So the fact of the matter is that they want to get building on something, and unlike a developer that might rezone it and flip it or rezone it and hold it, if we can actually get some shovels in the ground on some units, that's a big deal as far as I'm concerned. And this is might actually be the first one to get shovels in the ground in that area. So I'm supportive of moving forward.
Okay, very good. I think I'll just say yes, piling on perhaps. It's the first 28 units that we're talking about today. So anything else? All the question, all in favor? Opposed, Councillor McLaughlin is opposed, the motion carries. Thank you to the mystery architect. So without further ado, we move to item 5.3. And this is on page 117. And Mr. Hall, there's a few new terms, I think, for us in this, and the approach that's being taken. So perhaps you can make sure we understand that better.
Sure. So the province has regulations around strata development, and in the case of previously occupied dwellings, there's a requirement for the council to approve that or to delegate the authority to approve it. So in this particular case, they have not yet prepared the strata plan for approval, so there's nothing that council can actually approve, but you can delegate the authority to the approving officer to approve the plan once it has been prepared, which is what we've recommended council do. So this is similar to what council has previously seen with the Habitat for Humanity project in Wilson Creek, except in those cases, there was an actual strata plan for council to approve at that time. Whereas in this case, it's not ready yet, but you can make the decision to delegate the authority that would allow the approving officer to do so once it is ready, thereby indicating your support for it.
Thank you, because that's where I was looking for clarity. What, do we have any involvement in a strata conversion?
Only when it's a dwelling that's been previously occupied. So in terms of all the different types of subdivision where either the approving officer has to make a decision or they can go straight to the land title office, or where a municipal or regional district needs to be involved. A normal strata conversion of an unoccupied dwelling wouldn't require council's oversight, but when it's been previously occupied, there's a specific regulation that says council has to approve that, or they have to delegate the authority to somebody to approve it. So that's where that kind of oversight comes in, because it's got existing occupants and there's sort of a number of issues that the province has outlined to say, okay, you need to look at this, to consider these factors before you approve the strata conversion.
Okay. So is it occupied?
Yes.
But recommendation one says previously occupied.
Yeah, I mean, previously occupied being it's occupied now, or it's been occupied. The idea being, if it wasn't occupied at all, at any point, it was just newly constructed and never occupied, then
Got it.
council doesn't need to
Okay.
be involved. But the fact that people are living in there or have lived in there,
Right.
that's the issue.
Okay, thank you. All right. Those were clarifications for me. Council? Any questions? Yes, Councillor Tough.
Thank you. I mean, duplex is, or half a duplex is gonna be more affordable than a house downtown. So I'm gonna move the recommendations on 117 as presented.
Seconded, I saw a second, several of them. Okay, any discussion, further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Hall. Okay, then we go to the page 121, and this is the permissive property tax exemption bylaw number 624, 2024. And this is a remind council, this is before us for first, second, and third reading tonight. Sorry, yes,
Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Thank you. Good evening. I've got just a brief summary of the report. So staff is seeking council's consideration and approval for the proposed permissive property tax exemption for the 2025 tax year. This bylaw is for a one-year term. Earlier this year, the committee of 3 council members and staff was established to review the current permissive property tax policy with the expectation to present to council the final draft later this year. Included in this report is 2 attachments, one listing the 49 applicants in 4 different categories, and then the second listing is all community service applicants that provide community housing or supportive housing, as this has been an interest to council in the past. The total estimated municipal tax exemption for 2025 is $265,909. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thank you very much. Questions, council? Councillor Shepherd.
I don't have any questions about the report, and, you know, I'm in support of the recommendation on page 121. I just wanted to draw to council's attention and wonder if council was aware of the approach that Gibson's took. Much like the District of Sechelt, they have a tremendous problem with the lack of land for social housing. And what they did, going through this same process, is write to all of these groups and look for land, any excess land that anyone on the list would have. Naturally, no one came forward. So they actually ended up identifying several groups that were getting a tax benefit who had excess land, and they decided to partially adjust their taxes upwards as a gentle method of pressure to have them come forward and cooperate with the municipality. And I'm not saying that we should do that right now, but there are one or two on the list that I think would be good opportunities. And that next year, before, as we do this process, that we should really look at each of them through the lens of what opportunities there are for social housing, because we're in desperate need of certain housing projects. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Top.
Thank you. And part of why we're sort of going with status quo for this year is because the work that we as a committee were doing was almost ready to come to council, but then we liked what Gibson's was doing. And so there's a little more conversation. It is going to be coming to council later this month, hopefully. And there's going to be a couple of sort of decision points where we would like council's broader input into it before the policy gets finalized and wrapped up for 2026. So this is just a holdover of status quo for the moment.
Hey. Sounds like one of the committee members would like to make a recommendation.
Sure, I'll move the recommendation on 121 as presented.
Yep. Second. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. So then we go to 127, I believe it is. At 126, beg your pardon. And this is the bylaw before us for, if you wish for 3 readings. You doing them all?
I will move first, second, and third reading of bylaw number 624, 2024.
Thank you. And the second discussion? Favor? Carried. Great. Thank you, Ms. Smith. That council, we go to page 134, I believe, which is the OCP amendment, and back to us for second reading. We have Mr. Pearson. Let's see if the camera can find you. Oh, look at that. It worked.
Thanks, Your Worship. So what's in front of you as item 6.2 is a staff report along with 4 attachments, and the proposed bylaw is attached as item 6.2A. So just speaking about the staff report, the recommendation is to rescind the previous second reading granted in June and to grant second reading to the newly amended bylaw that's in 6.2A. The staff report contains background and rationale with a link to the September 11th Committee of the Whole report that was a bit more comprehensive than the report before you today for background. And I won't get into a lot of the background because I believe we've talked about it at length. Just noting the proposed bylaw today, the highlighted portion on page 1 of the bylaw is proposed text to clarify the policies related to lot consolidation and apartment development in the special infill areas, in particular the downtown village and the transition commercial designations. Page 2 of the bylaw is the new proposed figure 17 with explanatory notes. And if you look at page 2 of the proposed bylaw, I just want to mention that as you move down the table with each land use designation and the proposed floor area ratios and building heights, those actually now match our zoning bylaw. So what's being proposed now in figure 17 is entirely consistent with the new SHMU zones that council adopted in the summer as well. And this is leading off to what could be a good thing for opening up development higher and using our airspace, which we need because we only have less than 10% of our land base available for development. And we have to accommodate 2,900 units over the next 20 years, according to the Housing Needs Report. So I'll leave it at that for now. And if you have any questions, I'm obviously here. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Council, how do you want to proceed? Councillor McLaughlin? Microphone, please.
Yeah, I don't want to support the recommendation to move forward with this, so if somebody else wants to, and then we can discuss it.
Okay. Is that a motion, Councillor Ray?
Yeah. I'll move recommendation 1 on page 134.
Great. And there's, two parts to that, but yeah. Okay,
Correct,
second.
yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So you'd like to speak to it
Yeah,
now?
just to comment on it. I'd like to ask the planning department if they've overlaid any environmental factors on this. I was hoping when we heard from the SCRD, we would get some information that might give us some kind of insight into long-term what the environmental hazards are for flooding especially, and then maybe identify some places where we should not be redeveloping. Because I don't see that here, but correct me if I'm wrong, if they have overlaid that. I think it's really important to have a sustainable plan. You need to really start looking at the environmental impacts and also other things like working with existing development. Existing homes are the most affordable homes we have, and they're the best way to intensify with infill is to build upon the existing homes. The homes in the village, they vary in age, but can be perhaps on average about 50 years old, which means they could well have another 50 years of lifespan in them. And so I don't see how this zoning or the OCP amendment takes that into account. Plus, I've always been concerned that we don't need the same tables in the OCP as the zoning bylaw. The OCP to me should be more general. So I don't think we need this table in the OCP. It's an issue. I've talked to the former planners as well about it. To have it in the zoning bylaw is sufficient to have that kind of detail in the zoning bylaw, not the OCP. So I would like to see the overall OCP done first before this kind of detailed OCP amendment is put into it. And I don't believe it is required for SMU to have this in the OCP. So I don't feel like we're doing OCP planning here. We're just doing OCP reaction, unfortunately. And I would like to see environmental aspects taken into account so that perhaps you might even find in some parts of the village area, we want more density because we all know that those areas are at a higher elevation and are more appropriate for development long-term. And I don't want to see developments go ahead where they're not actually sustainable for at least 50 years. And, you know, where are we left? We're left with angry developers and homeowners. And I think they deserve to know that we've researched this more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Toth?
Thank you. Just sort of following up on Councillor McLaughlin's comments, the HRVA work that's being done to look at these hazard and vulnerability assessments. I know the regional district is doing a lot of that work, and I think the regional district is taking the lead on it for the district of Sechelt. But I was just wondering if the planning department could sort of chime in with their involvement in this process. Thanks.
Great, thank you. And I think planning department will chime in.
Yes, thank you. We recently attended a meeting at SCRD, a regional coordination meeting of planners from Sechelt, SCRD, Town of Gibson's, and so on. Marina Stepovic, our community planner, has been involved and engaged in these processes through the way. We'll look at coastal flood mapping. We look at the development permit areas we have in our OCP already, our environmental sensitivity mapping that we do utilize, and those are companions with our density policy. In the coming months, you'll see an application for the Silverstone Heights area of West Sechelt, the upper part of Sechelt, and largely in part of the delay there is that they have been doing environmental studies for their neighborhood area plan, and we'll be bringing that forward. So this year is an update to density table figure 17 in the OCP, but it's a complements all the other plans and studies that we have and work regionally with our regional partners on. And so we believe in the interim, and this was described in our staff reports in the September committee. In the interim, there are measures to be made before we can go through the larger OCP review, and this remains our recommendation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Inkster?
Yeah. I mean, I'm generally in support of what we're needing to accomplish here in terms of identification. Although when we speak to the low-lying areas in Sechelt that Rick Allen was referring to, and some council members are worried about, what I foresee is parts of Davis Bay, parts of downtown around Wharf, and parts of West Sechelt around the Wakefield, and going further north, and then parts of the inlet, including where you are, being what areas of difficulty going forward in terms of how we plan for and react to sea level rise. So those are my concerns, and the maps are out there as to what we're looking to. I think it will be, I don't know if many of us, maybe Councillor Toth will still be around when we start to see some of these problems. But I'm not sure if many of the rest of us will be. But that's where I foresee our issues being in Sechelt. So, you know, in a sense, though, we still need to go up. Thanks. I just mean on council, if staff's looking at me, glaring at me, I just meant on council.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'll just say thank you. Okay. Council. Order. Yep. Okay, anything else? I point of clarification, page 135, is it realistic to get a public hearing in October? Is that got it mapped out to make that happen with notice and everything? Is it personal about travel schedules and bookings and making sure we got a date?
We're not obliged to hold it in October. I think that the sentiment is in the near future. We do have to do at minimum 2 weeks advertising the Coast Report or organize, ensure council's available. So there are some pieces, and if it goes into early October, that's okay too. It's just that's generally the timeline.
Right, or even early November.
Correct. That's what I meant to say.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Okay, council, anything else? Not, I'll call the question. This is on page 134, the recommendation as printed. All in favor? Opposed? Councilor McLaughlin is opposed. The motion carries. So then we go to the bylaw, which is on, I hope I'm on the right place, 142? Yes. Page 142 onwards. And this is before us for second reading. Sir Shepherd, like to move second reading?
Yeah, I'll move second reading,
Great.
shown on page 142.
Second, see a second. Any further discussion? Appreciate the change being highlighted in this. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councilor McLaughlin is opposed. The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Council, we then go to page 6.3 anyways. Yeah. 145, yeah. Okay, so so this is for the community services building, a zoning and small zoning amendment. Mr. Hall, any dynamic statements to offer us?
Only that, you know, when the Community Services had done their original rezoning. There had been no dwelling unit written into the zone at that time. When we updated to zoning bylaw 580, we had put in dwelling unit limits in a number of zones on site-specific basis, and including this one. So when they're looking at converting a space to add an additional unit, we're having to come back and amend the zoning bylaw. So to avoid this issue potentially arising in future, we're proposing just to remove the dwelling unit limit from this zone for the particular property. And as noted, we have to update the housing agreement to match with all of that, and that'll be next steps afterwards.
Okay, thanks. Okay, yes, Counselor Shepherd.
I'll move the 4 recommendations on page 145.
Thank you. And a second discussion, Counselor McLaughlin and then Counselor Inkster.
Yes, thank you, the chair. I'm just wondering for a little history on this site. I understand that at one point there was a density transfer to some of the apartments that were there. And so this site was very low density in the end, and now we're proposing a new building. And I just wonder if there's any conflicts with that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And planning department offer us some insights?
I'm not sure what density transfer is being referred to. I mean, the site is limited by the BC Hydro right of way. So previously they were looking at a substantial height increase beyond which we weren't comfortable dealing with through a development variance permit approach. So we had,
But in terms of, you're not aware of the density transfer. Is there anything, Counselor McLaughlin, you can shed to help us maybe
Yeah,
remember?
you might want to check some of the legal documents on file for those properties, some of the housing, multifamily housing developments around there, because they might have something relating to that. Just from doing real estate appraisal, I became aware of this. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take that then as some information to have a look at. I don't think at this point, this is before us to have one more unit or to remove the maximum dwelling unit. So I think that's perhaps not the same thing. So yes, Counselor Inkster.
Yeah, I'm a little confused by that because I didn't know there was previously change in use. So I thought it was all educational and service, that piece of land.
Community services?
Yeah. It was Capilano College.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And then it became
Right,
community
right.
services, right? So I don't remember it being any zoned anything other than educational.
So it was already a low zone or low density.
Perhaps public assembly,
Okay.
educational, yeah, service. So I don't remember it being
Okay.
anything other than that, yeah.
All right, well, we've given that information to staff, but they'll feed back to us in due course. For the moment, it's what's before us is recommendations on page 145. You may ask another question.
Thanks. Just when we mentioned number 3, council approved the waiver development cost charge for dwelling units and this would be approved waiver for the original 34. Did we discuss what the development cost charge waiver was, the amount of waiver? Does planning and or finance staff remember what that was? I mean,
I think it predates us, this council.
Okay. Is there any way I could know, I mean, when we support affordable housing and or needed housing like this, it would be good for us to be able to say, this is the amount that we supported as well as grants or other kinds of support. Because if we, and we've done this with Green Corp before, so it's not new. If we waive DCCs in order to create the opportunity to create affordable housing, it's in a sense cost that's borne by everyone.
It is, that's agreed. And Mr. Allen?
Sure. The precise figure escapes me, but let's say it's $11,000 roughly for an apartment unit times that by 35. That's our, in a sense, cash contribution is close to $360,000 on this project alone. The Green Court had 3 different types of dwelling units and rates through the BC Housing Agreement, and 2 of the 3 were endorsed for waiver. and during the previous council and whichever, that was 91 units, so a significantly higher contribution that we make essentially through lack of bringing in that expected revenue. But it is that trade-off for protected, permanent, affordable housing. And of course, political decision, but that's the
Yeah, thanks.
checks and balances behind it.
And in terms of what's before us, then you're saying roughly 11,000 more that we're forgiving or waiving, thank you. Whatever. Okay. Okay, Councilor McLaughlin.
Isn't an item, resolution of some sort at UBCM about this? It is an issue and, it's a cost that's hard for a small municipality or district like ours to bear. We might be wanting to research that and send a letter to the appropriate ministry for that because, if you don't ask, you don't get. But I think we owe it to our taxpayers to try and get that money.
I agree. We're certainly trying at UBCM and every other chance we get after the election, I guess. All right, council, we have a motion on page 145 for recommendations 1 through 4. All in favor? Carried. Then we go to 151, which is the actual bylaw. And this is before us for 3 readings. Thank you. Second? Discussion? All in favor? Carried. All right, thank you. So that brings us to moving item 7.1. Am I right? Yes, item 7.1 on page 153. And these are minutes. I don't know, Councillor Inkster is our representative on the Accessibility Advisory Committee. Like to comment on the minutes?
I think
Are they accurate? I guess.
Yeah.
really.
They are. I spoke to this last meeting, last week. The important piece is 4. And that's so that we have some funding so that, you know, particular municipalities such as ours don't have to step up if need be and cover some of the work that needs to be done, really important work that needs to be done for this committee from within our staff pool. So if we apply for funding, we'll have a designated person and or consultant to help with that committee and some of its ideas and motions. So that's a really important piece, number 4, but I'm quite sure that council would be supportive, I'm assuming, of the items presented.
Okay, thank you. And I think this is here just for information. Take it as read. Councilor McLaughlin.
If I could just comment on that. I understand for Seashell, we had an advisory committee of sorts along these lines for about 10 years. And there must be a lot of minutes and ideas in all those good old minutes, but who wants to go through them all, I don't know. But maybe if in this position, they could take a stab at that and then bring forward some good ideas that I'm sure are still relevant. Thank you.
Okay, and I guess that is driven by the question, if we had staff, that might be something they could take on. Councillor Top?
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to comment that the previous chair of that committee for the District of Seashelt was Bill, who is the chair of this regional committee. So there's certainly a synergy there in terms of he probably has copies of everything. Yeah, so I think it's a good opportunity for sure. Thank you.
Councillor Inkster?
Yeah, just a process question though. If in fact this group is applying for money, do we not have to endorse these?
I think it would depend where they're applying, and I agree with you. I'm sure when they are applying, they'll come back saying they need a letter. I think we can't really write a blanket letter of support, I don't think. Can we? Councillor Top?
Thank you. I'm seeing in number 4, that staff representatives apply for grant funding to support the Accessibility Advisory Committee. So I'm thinking we probably need to pass a motion authorizing staff to apply for grant funding on behalf of this committee, which I'm happy to move.
It's a motion. There's a seconder. Second. All right. Okay. All right. Everybody clear on that? All in favor? Carried. Oops.
Sorry, my mistake. We need all three endorsed.
Well, okay, but all three recommendations endorsed. 4, 5, 6?
The Chair, the problem is that Ms. Polson, who was at that meeting, is not well tonight, so yes, Roberts is here in her place. She probably would have said that we need to move all three. So
All right.
it would be good if we could. Yeah.
So the first motion was that we authorize staff. Yeah, so. Okay, so now we need a motion then for 5 and 6. Okay. Your second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor of 5 and 6? Carried. Okay. Terrific. That brings us to the highlights. That would be council reports, starting with the SCRD since last week. Yes, Councillor Inkster.
Very sneaky. Just a couple things to mention, Regional District. I know that council knows, and maybe the community knows, if in fact they're right on top of some of the communication that's been released from the Regional District through Facebook and otherwise, that we've gone back down to stage 1. And as identified in that communication, rain did help. Although, because as council knows, we have had stages, higher stages, gone further than early October in past years. So rain did help over the summer. The fact that, as we mentioned a number of times, having a well system in place like Church Road helped with the water use. And also the big one, for those meter poo-pooers, the discovery and repair of a number of leaks in the Seashelt area and or encouragement to repair has meant that the thousands of liters that were being leaked into the ground, et cetera, are now saved for our household use and or fire and or hospital use. So that's an important piece. We're down to stage 1 and hopefully it doesn't we don't move till, I guess, June again in any other direction other than stay where we are. So that's a good thing, water. It's oxygen and water. That's what we need, right? And the other thing is, I just wanted to mention there was a housing report that came to the Regional District. If council members that are interested in housing, it would be all of us, but I think 2 in particular want that document. I'm sure that Councillor Toth or myself can provide that to them easily. The thing that I wanted to mention was as it was identified previous tonight, the workforce housing issue was one of the big ones that was mentioned by that group. It's almost like they were channeling Councillor Rowe when they were speaking there, because they did talk about workforce and or hospital staff housing that there's a definite need for going forward. And I did ask if they were going to be more active in the Seashelt area to work closer with our council, and they did see Seashelt as having some definitive needs. I think that's the 2 important things I wanted to mention from the Regional District last week. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Councillor Toth?
I have a question, please.
Uh,
If I may. Just a question to Councillor Inkster, just a comment. Will we be you mentioned about the data around the leaks and that there has been significant data coming forward. Will that be shared at some point? I think that's really great information because that is certainly, will help support why meters are so important. So I just wanted to make that comment. It'd be great to know that. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, we can certainly request that. And we've heard figures, and
Yes.
you may remember, Councillor Toth, more exactly those figures, the numbers and the liters. Yeah.
Yes, So
Yeah.
just, okay,
Yeah.
Counselor Toth.
Thank you. The most recent figure that was given to us was that there were 5 leaks in the Seashell area that were leaking 500 homes worth of water every day. So, you know, that's a lot. That number was provided to us in the water, update, which is posted on the website, but I'll forward it to council after the meeting. And I just wanted to correct Councillor Inkster, because as of yesterday, the SCRD declared an end to water conservation regulations for all water systems. So we're not even on stage 1, but it's fully off at this point. So, yeah. And while I've got the
Let's drink to
microphone,
that.
I have no council report. Thank you.
Well, we'll start with Counselor Toth, the counselor report. And we'll go to Counselor Inkster. That way. Counselor report. Oh, what have you done since last week?
Came right back to me. Yeah, not turning it off would help. Just a couple of things that I wanted to mention. I've had some discussions with, lately more than previously on a couple of citizen concerns. And I've asked them to forward that information through to staff. So we'll see where those 2 bits of concerns go through to staff, and and I've encouraged them to talk to staff, and so we'll come back to council with hopefully some solutions, see what happens. I wanted to mention last week, UBCM. The thing I didn't mention last week, because we had so much going on, was that I went to the electric presentation at the UBCM, and it's all about electrification. But the thing that, because it's certainly a clean power that we need to keep considering. I'm not sure if council's aware, but they're going to get 4 more chargers here in the fast chargers, which any of us with electric vehicles really appreciate. They're going to get 4 more in the next few months next door. And I'm hearing that they're going to have a 400 kilowatt one. This is BC Hydro coming out soon. So that's 10 minutes for most of us. That's like, we're coming to the point where it's like filling up with gas. That's how long this is going to take to charge up your vehicle. So that's great. And that's a 400 kilowatt one. So I just wanted to mention those 2 things. And I'll talk more about UBCM a little bit more next time, just in pieces. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. That goes to Counselor McLaughlin.
Thank you through the chair. On Saturday, although it was somewhat overcast, I went to the Healthy Climate Solutions Fair at Seashell Elementary School, and had some presentations there, one on solar power. Makes me wonder why we do not have a solar power development. Maybe in townhouses or something. Solar panels. It can work here. Also on a plant-based diet. You could read a whole book on that. And I think we all know that vegetables are good for us now, so let's have more of those. And also they had a fashion show based on some of our thrift shops, but amazing talents of people can transform things into very snazzy outfits. I used to sew quite a bit, so I was somewhat inspired. But the fact is, what we need to do is probably eat less and buy less clothing, and perhaps even give up our cars, because that's the way we're actually going to get to the greenhouse gas emissions. That's the only way. Thank you. And then, of course, on Sunday, I went to the Truth and Reconciliation Walk, and that was a wonderful event. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Counselor Shepherd?
Not sure if Councilor McLaughlin was looking at me when saying not to eat, but, okay. I attended the Day of Reconciliation in the March. I thought it was it's very inspiring to see that group of people marching for that reason. I'm hope it continues. The numbers seem to be growing every year, so it was a great event. Other than that, just a couple of meetings to do with community safety in preparation for the meeting tomorrow night at 6:30. And one of which was with the West Seashell Community Association to talk about they have sort of a version of Block Watch that they've already been rolling out. So just to get some details on that, see if it's worth adopting for the community as a whole. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Counselor Rowe.
Thank you. Other than Truth and Reconciliation Day on Monday, just been getting ready for the meeting tomorrow night. So still some seats available if people want to register. We'll see you there. That's it.
Thank you. Counselor Bell.
Nothing to add. Thank you.
Wow, okay. Now I'm not ready. Okay, so Counselor McLaughlin recognized the Healthy Climate Fair, which is part of the Seashell EV Festival. And it was great to see the combinations. GM has gone from virtually no models of EVs to I think it's 10 models. So we had a couple of firsts. We also had test drives of Teslas and unicycles and bicycles and scooters and a whole lot of fun, including, and I want to echo the comment about the thrifting fashion show. We did get a video of it, and it was great fun to see these ladies doing it upright for their creations. Solar panels is an interesting comment because I don't know how many people are aware, but Clayton's right here has several hundred panels on the roof. And there are others around, but it's absolutely, you're absolutely right. The ability to create energy or draw energy from solar is a big part of the future solution. On a more somber note, I had I guess the opportunity to visit the Silverstone Care Center and the hospice, a wonderful facility for people at a very challenging time in their lives. And so it's nice that we're able to provide some modest amount of care. And the staff, I want to give a shout out. They really step up in those difficult times. So I'll leave it at that. Councillor Inkster
Yeah,
pointing his pen at.
Yeah, just more like this. The solar power one you mentioned, there was you probably saw over there a portable solar power one. And that's actually one that my kid built.
Oh.
Yeah, you know that. And he got to be in the newspaper standing next to it in the community section this week. So looks like I got political competition within the family. But I'll deal with that at home. Yeah, I might. Oh, that's a good point with solar and power ground. That's a good one over there. Anyway.
Order, point of order.
The thing is that that was his capstone project at high school. That's kind of like a thesis, if anybody doesn't know what those are. And so that was his project working on this summer, and it's portable solar power. So you can hook it up to homes and or units and move it around. He's been part of that. So just good to see all the work and success in that thing.
Yep, you're right. Thank you, because the Solar Association, of which Logan was part of it, has stepped up. They were last week at Gibson's with it, and then this week. And great to see the cooperation. Now you got something to report?
No, I just wanted to add on to the solar commentary. Unfortunately, I missed Logan's capstone project there, but that array that you mentioned on Trailbase Center is 100 kilowatts, which is the largest array that BC Hydro will allow for interconnect on commercial, like on buildings. And it was one of the first 100 kilowatt arrays actually built in British Columbia on an existing building. So super fascinating, and I'm sure we can manage a tour if council's interested in looking at it.
Okay. If there's nothing else, then we'll entertain a motion to adjourn. In favor? We're adjourned. Okay, so this is question.